The events unfold in the near future. On the train, artist Cameron Turner notices an attractive girl who unashamedly starts eating his chocolate bar. The young people share the chocolate, exchanging glances and smiles. Only when the girl was about to get off at her stop did Cameron realize that it was actually her chocolate, and he had absent-mindedly put his own in the pocket. Cameron immediately felt embarrassed. Then the events take us many years into the future. Cameron recalls how he married that very girl from the train. That same evening, Cameron received a call from Dr. Joe Scott, who informed him that his condition was rapidly deteriorating, so they needed to complete the scan as soon as possible. Upon returning home, Cameron first went into his son's room, who was already asleep, as was Poppy. Cameron himself couldn't sleep, his thoughts occupied with something else. Suddenly in the bathroom, he lost consciousness. When Cameron woke up, he was relieved to realize that Poppy hadn't noticed anything. This incident showed Cameron that he could no longer delay. At the first opportunity, he set off for a closed scientific complex, which is located in a remote area. Cameron was met by Dr. Scott, who told him about the project. According to the doctor, Cameron's disease doesn't threaten his doppelganger, because they have modified his DNA. However, if Cameron decides to withdraw from the project, his clone will never leave this place. For now, the duplicate has been given the name Jack. After this, Dr. Scott introduced Cameron to Dalton, the psychologist and lead specialist. Besides him and Dr. Scott, there are no other employees here because all the work is done by artificial intelligence. Finally, Cameron was shown Jack, his exact genetic copy. Seeing him, Cameron was amazed, because he and Jack looked identical. Even those closest to him wouldn't notice the difference. Cameron has conflicting feelings and tells Dr. Scott that he can't do this. After that, Cameron decides to leave and return home. Dr. Scott sent a message to Cameron, persuading him to reconsider. As soon as Cameron tells the wife about his illness, his chance to change anything will disappear. However, he could agree to participate in the project, and then his family will continue to live their normal life, never knowing about his illness. At home, Cameron looks at his wife and son, barely holding back tears. More than anything, he wants to shield them from the awful truth. And since his condition is deteriorating rapidly, a decision needs to be made as soon as possible. Trying to focus on painting, Cameron remembers Andre, Poppy's twin brother. He is no longer alive, but in those happy days none of them suspected that tragedy would soon befall them. Once, they were discussing cloning. Cameron expressed opposition to such things, but Poppy had a different opinion. For her, the most important thing was for loved ones to always be nearby. In Poppy's view, ethics don't matter when it comes to life. In the present, Cameron received another message from Dr. Scott requesting a meeting. She explained that the duplicate's memory of the process will be erased. One morning he will wake up as Cameron Turner and won't even know that he's actually someone's genetic copy. His family's life will continue as usual. Cameron wonders how many others like him there are. Dr. Scott said that he would be the third, but in her opinion this practice will become widespread in a few years. To convince Cameron, Dr. Scott showed him a woman who has no idea she is a duplicate, and neither does anyone close to her. She has the same memories as the original. Cameron decided to meet Kate personally. It turns out she has a daughter, who of course has no idea her mother is a clone. Cameron doesn't know what the right thing to do is. On the one hand, he doesn't want to hurt those he loves, and on the other hand, he doesn't want to lie to them. This dilemma has left him restless. That evening, Poppy confessed to her husband that she is pregnant. She noticed that after this news, Cameron became even more depressed. Cameron lied that he just couldn't realize his happiness yet. Poppy embraced him. This circumstance made Cameron reconsider and return to the laboratory. Here he met real Kate, who is also seriously ill, and she is forced to spend her last months of life here. Cameron lied to his wife that he was urgently called away for a week at work because supposedly their main designer got sick. Dr. Scott and Dalton explained to Cameron that he will sleep for 6 hours while his memories are transferred into Jack's brain. During the transfer, Jack's mind flashed with memories from his entire life. Finally, the procedure was completed. Jack is still asleep and now knows everything that Cameron knows. Later, Cameron walked with Kate through the woods, and they had a heart-to-heart conversation. Cameron assured Kate that her daughter is happy, as is her other self. Kate said that 42 days and 6 hours have passed since she was replaced. Dr. Scott and Dalton conduct tests to make sure that all the memories of the clone and the original match perfectly. This was very difficult for Cameron. He remembers meeting Poppy again and apologizing for eating her chocolate. As an apology, he gave her a drawing on which she herself was depicted. Poppy left Cameron her email address. Since then, they've never parted. Their romance developed rapidly. When they had the son, Cameron realized he now had everything one could dream of. The family was always the most important thing to him. But then tragedy struck. Poppy's twin brother deceased, and it broke her heart. In the evening, Cameron spoke with his wife via video call, trying to act as if everything was all right. However, Poppy realized that her husband was hiding something. Cameron promised that when he returns, they will go on vacation as a family. During the memory transfer, Cameron continues to delve into the past. There were many good moments in his life, but soon the clone will take his place. It was time to wake Jack up. It was a very nerve-wracking moment for everyone. Jack woke up and was very disoriented. Later, Rafa told Cameron that the procedure went well. He will be able to see the clone tomorrow morning. They would both remain here for now. A freckle on the palm is the only thing that differentiates them at the moment. That's why Dr. Scott advised Jack to look at it if he ever gets confused about who he is. Meanwhile, Cameron played with his son online. At that moment, Cameron felt ill. He managed to disconnect the call before losing consciousness. The next day, Cameron told Kate that any of these attacks could be his last. So Cameron is afraid that he might not get a chance to say goodbye to his family. Rafa called out to Cameron, saying they were ready. Finally, Cameron and Jack met. Both were experiencing very strange emotions at that moment. When Jack shared some of his memories, Cameron realized that they were indeed identical. Jack was genuinely sorry that things had turned out this way. Dr. Scott continued testing, with stunned Cameron watching. He still cannot accept the fact that he will be replaced by someone else. Besides memories, what unites them is that Poppy is a soulmate for both of them. It was she who brought meaning to Cameron's life. Currently, Kate is the only one who truly understands Cameron, as they ended up in a similar situation. Dr. Scott tells Cameron to ask Jack abstract questions to understand how well the clone navigates their shared memories. Jack passed this check by telling the story of Andre getting into a motorcycle accident on a mountain road. After this, Poppy fell into a depression and didn't leave the house for over a year. Cameron was very worried about her and didn't know how to help. Poppy blamed herself for not being able to dissuade her twin brother from buying a motorcycle. Later, Cameron and Jack had lunch together. It seemed like they were gradually getting used to the situation. The next stage of testing was reached, in which the clone had to call the wife and speak with her. Overjoyed, Poppy announced that she had been to the doctor. He confirmed her pregnancy. Hearing this, Cameron felt annoyed, as Poppy didn't even notice the replacement. Unable to bear it, Cameron ended the call and got into a fight with his clone, stating that Poppy was not his wife and he was just a counterfeit. Cameron intended to withdraw from the project, then Jack began accusing him of selfishness. The conflict escalated, but suddenly Cameron felt bad again. This reminded him that his days were numbered. Jack asked Dr. Scott for permission to talk to Cameron alone and outside the lab. She was not against it. Cameron remembered the day when he came to realize that Poppy would cope without him. Poppy had always been self-sufficient, worked a lot, and pursued her goals, regardless of anything. Jack understands that Cameron needs to see his family before making a final decision. But if he confesses everything to them, he would do it for himself, not for them. Cameron is going home for 3 days to spend time with his family. Dr. Scott hopes that Cameron will make the right decision, otherwise Jack will be put into eternal sleep. Having hugged Kate, Cameron set off on his journey. His lenses had a camera installed, so Jack saw everything he did. This was necessary for the psychological evaluation of Cameron. As Cameron was approaching his house, he felt sick and passed out. Jack, Dr. Scott, and Dalton became nervous, because if Cameron didn't wake up, his family would find out the truth. Fortunately, Cameron woke up. Dr. Scott urgently sent a car to him. Trying to stay unnoticed by his wife, Cameron got into the car. Dr. Scott is persuading him to return to the laboratory. Cameron does not want to, but there is no choice. He has gone too far and cannot back out now. Dr. Scott has decided that tomorrow Jack will go home. If all goes well within 2 weeks, Jack's memories of the procedure and the fact that he is a clone will be erased. After that, his normal life will start. Jack was met at home by worried Poppy, who is sure that her husband had slipped in the shower yesterday and was hospitalized. It seems Poppy didn't even suspect anything was wrong, but their dog sensed that it was not Cameron. Meanwhile, Cameron woke up in the lab. Dr. Scott told him that he had been unconscious for almost 24 hours. Cameron was very angry to learn that Jack was already in his house. Dr. Scott assured that it was the only right decision and that Jack was fully ready to replace him. Cameron wanted to watch the video to see for himself. He saw Jack playing with his son, who would never think that it was not his father in front of him but a clone. Reading Andre's favorite book, Poppy couldn't hold back her tears. She is also upset that the husband has distanced himself from her, as she from him. Poppy fears losing Cameron for good and wants to make things right. Real Cameron supports Kate, who is getting worse. Cameron drew something for the friend to cheer her up. Kate is glad that there is someone who understands her. Soon Kate passed away. The ashes were scattered over the water. Now Cameron feels utterly lonely. Cameron does not like that Jack often removes his lenses so no one sees what he sees. But according to Dr. Scott, it's normal as Jack feels uncomfortable. However, Cameron refuses to admit that this is also Jack's family. In the evening, the family was having dinner. The son refused to put away his phone, so Jack lost his temper. But it turned out that this was just Cameron's nightmare, who is worried about his loved ones. That same night, he secretly escaped from the lab, confident that no one but him could take care of his family. While everyone was asleep, Cameron freely entered the house and quietly went upstairs. In his private room, he saw many sketches. It turned out that Jack had been drawing a lot all this time. Jack woke up to extraneous noises while Cameron was watching the family videos. He understands that if his family learns the truth, it will cause them suffering. Jack entered the room. Cameron didn't know what to expect from this meeting, but Jack, it seemed, fully shared his pain and was ready for any decision of Cameron. He just wants to say goodbye to his family, as he will never see them again. First he went to his son's room and woke him up, suggesting they go to the kitchen and have lemonade together. Jack, who had hidden, was watching this. When Cameron hugged his son, he couldn't hold back his tears. He just told the son how much he loved him. After that, Cameron went to the bathroom to calm down. It was time to say goodbye to his wife. Cameron was sorry that he did not always appreciate what he had. Only now does he understand that a person should appreciate every moment of life before it's too late. The couple decided that if they had a boy, they would name him Andre. When Poppy fell asleep, Cameron was ready to leave forever. Jack said thank you to him. Cameron simply asked him to promise that he would take care of his family. Their paths parted forever. Cameron returned to the laboratory to live out his time. 2 weeks later, Dr. Scott said that from that day on, Jack officially became Cameron Turner, and he would never remember what had happened. Cameron thanked her for everything, understanding that his decision was right. A new patient will be arriving soon. Dr. Scott also told Cameron that Jack had left him a parting gift. It was a video of his family. Jack asked Poppy to say that she loved him. Hearing the wife's touching words, Cameron cried.